So the draft lottery is a big night in the NBA, and it is a huge catalyst for the future of young NBA teams. And the 2022 NBA draft lottery was yesterday. And usually in recent memory, there's always been this one team that has jumped up. Last year, whether it was the Raptors getting Scotty Barnes, 2 years ago, whether it was the Hornets getting LaMelo Ball, or 3 years ago where the Pelicans and the Grizzlies went up all the way to number 1, number 2, where, as you guys know, they picked Zion Williamson and Ja Morant. And this year, it was the Sacramento Kings, who have a bit of a notorious draft history. They have passed on so many amazing stars, but they have a second chance, or a third chance, or a fourth chance, a 10th chance, a 20th chance. They have another chance. And this team, they traded for Domantas Sabonis. They traded probably their best future asset in Tyrese Halliburton to be win now for Domantas Sabonis. And it didn't work out. But going from the 7 best odds and getting a top 4 pick is huge for them. And we're going to be breaking down what they should be doing with this number 4 pick, because they shouldn't trade it. They need to make a selection, and they need to make the right one. So let's talk about the team needs. The Kings this year made the Sabonis trade, and they gave up a lot. They gave up some guard play, but they already had De'Aaron and Davion Mitchell. They gave up some playmaking, and they gave up some shooting. They gave up one of the best three-point shooters in the league in Buddy Hield to get Sabonis. But first, defense. It's always been a huge problem with them. They've always been bottom of the league defense. I mean, with the lineup of, like, you got Davion Mitchell in the backcourt, but with, like, you got De'Aaron Fox, you got Davion Mitchell, you got Harrison Barnes, you got Rashawn Holmes, Trey Lyles, someone like that, and Sabonis as your center. You got De'Aaron Fox as one of your lead defensive guards and Domantas Sabonis as your center. You got 2 of your stars that aren't great defenders. That's just not a good thing. They need some better forward play. Harrison Barnes is a bit too old for the timeline. He is regressing, and he's on a huge contract. And other than that, they just don't have a ton of depth or a ton of young assets at the forward and three-point shooting. With giving up Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield, they lost some three-point shooting. They did acquire Donnie DiVincenzo, but they could definitely use more. And I think one thing that I compare this pick for the Kings is similar to 2 years ago in the 2020 draft. The Bulls had the 4th overall pick. There was a very consensus top 3. If you guys remember, Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, and LaMelo Ball, who all ended up going top 3. That is what ended up happening. And the Bulls, with the 4th pick, they had a ton of options. Obi Toppin, Isaac Okoro, Denny Avdia, Tyrese Halliburton, and they eventually went with the guy that rose up a ton of draft boards that I don't think a lot of people expected, Patrick Williams, and has turned out to be a really solid pick for them. Tyrese Halliburton's had a better start to his career. I guess Isaac Okoro kind of has too, but Patrick Williams has not had his opportunity to show a ton of flashes, and he is still probably I think he's the youngest one out of those. So it's just, this Kings, they probably won't land a top 3 player or the consensus top 3. So this 4th pick is going to be crucial. But what is consensus top 3? It is Jabari Smith, Paolo Banchero, and Chet Holmgren. And I think it's those 3 in about everyone's mock draft are probably going the top 3. They're both 6'8", 6'9", 7 foot forwards. You saw them, if you saw the draft lottery, you saw them standing next to like Mike Schmitz, the NBA draft analyst. They look huge, and it was just those 3 there because those were the consensus top 3. This is what I project the order is going to be. I have the Magic selecting Jabari Smith from Auburn. I think I would take, if I'm a ton of teams, I'd take Paolo Banchero. I think Paolo Banchero is the best prospect in the draft, especially what he showed, his stellar play in March Madness. And I think more teams would take Paolo Banchero number 1 overall rather than Jabari Smith. But I think for Orlando, the inside and out shot creator scorer would be way more important. They lack that other offensive punch next to Cole Anthony. And they got guys like Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba two very good interior big men. I think Jabari Smith as their main scorer would be very, very nice. I think they would definitely pick him number one. The Thunder, Paolo Banchero is a great fit for them. He's a big body in the paint. He is way developed as a finisher, better than a ton of other young players in this league. And him with Josh Giddey, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luke Dort at the small forward. I think this team has another amazing young talent to add to their young core. Plus, they got the 12th overall pick, too. And then the Houston Rockets are left with the third guy. There's Chet Holmgren. I will talk about him a little later in this video. Chet Holmgren, I am a little bit of a skeptic of Chet Holmgren. I'm not as high as other people are on him. He has a very thin frame. He got bodied by Jalen Duren in March Madness. This is a perfect example. He just got sent to the floor. I don't know how he's going to do Joel Embiid or Giannis, heck, even Jokic. I don't really know how he's going to be able to defend him. He's not as amazing of a shot creator, three-point shooter as people think. But you can't deny the man has talent, especially for a 7-footer. So those are the projected top 3 picks. Now let's get on to some of the prospects that I think will be available for them to select at number 4. And the first guy we're going to be talking about is Keegan Murray from Iowa. Keegan Murray is a 21-year-old who's 6'8", he's 215, and he plays a power forward position. He averaged about 23 points, 8 rebounds, and about 2 assists. And Keegan Murray is a very good finisher. Most of his points come off drives, and he's just a physical guy. He averages about 2 blocks, too. He is just a young forward that you could just put into the Sacramento system, because I think this is all about fit for him. I honestly think this is all about fit for him. And if the point guard position is not a fit that they need. But the forward, we were talking about it, the Kings definitely need some good forward play. That's what Keegan Murray brings. I think he'd fit nice with the Sacramento Kings to be like a scorer and just bring some life in the organization. The Kings have not made the playoffs since 2004. Like, that's a huge drought. That is the biggest drought in the league. And to make that stop, you will need to get an electric score that fits your team perfectly. That is Keegan Murray right there. And I really like Keegan Murray as a prospect. And I think he just fits the team for Sacramento really, really well. The second guy that I think is going to be on a lot of mock drafts, a lot of people will be projecting him to the Kings, is Jaden Ivey from Purdue. Jaden Ivey is one of the best scorers in this entire class. He is just a 2-guard that can handle the ball. He can shoot. He can create his own shot. He can handle the ball, and he'll take some pressure off De'Aaron Fox, kind of like how Tyrese Halliburton did. And you saw some flashes there, but they wanted to pick one, and they picked the wrong guy. I think Jaden Ivey is going to be different because Jaden Ivey is not a point guard. I've seen some John Morant comparisons. He is not that. He is a good 2-guard that will bring some shooting, some scoring, and an offensive punch. Defensively, he is not great, and he doesn't have the size of guys like Banchero, Smith, Holmgren, Murray, and some other guys we might mention. He isn't as big, but to bring some scoring to Sacramento, a guy that can just fill out and get you buckets, can shoot from the perimeter, because De'Aaron Fox is not a very good jump shooter. I think he'll be a great 2-guard to a guy like De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox likes to create for himself, likes to get to the basket, and he's a solid playmaker. Jaden Ivey will have to alleviate some pressure off him. You got Davion Mitchell, who can lock up and also score off the bench. You don't still have a really solid forward, though. So with Keegan Murray, you miss some of that perimeter scoring, that 3-point shooting. But with Jaden Ivey, you don't have a ton of size that can actually play really well. So I think it's going to be an interesting choice to see who the Kings really prefer. But the Kings actually might go with someone else. Here's some other possible options. So the Kings, there's 3 other guys that I would look at as guys that probably aren't favorites to go to the Kings, but the Kings definitely could take. The first guy is Benedict Mathurin, the 1 seed Arizona. I think a lot of people probably know him from an amazing dunk that he had in March Madness. But Benedict Mathurin can defend. He can score. He's very athletic. He can score from the perimeter, and he was almost a 20-point scorer in Arizona. He's an electric player that can do it all for the Sacramento Kings. He'll play the 2-guard. He'll bring a little bit more all-around game than Jaden Ivey, but he won't bring as much of an offensive punch. And I think that he's just a good fit. He's just a fit that can give you buckets and can guard really well. And I think he'd be a really solid role player for the Kings. But do you really want to go with that for the 4th overall pick? Or do you think Jaden Ivey or Keegan Murray has way more potential? But speaking of potential, you can't bring the name or the word potential without mentioning Shaedon Sharpe. Now, as I've gone into this draft, I've listened to a ton of podcasts, read a ton of articles. Draft season is amazing. I really love draft season and making mock drafts. And from everywhere I've heard and from everywhere I've seen, Shaedon Sharpe, since I am very like a March Madness watcher and didn't hear this name, he was the mystery guy. He goes to Kentucky, but he was injured and he couldn't play the entire season. However, that potential, he might be the risky pick. And I'm not the biggest fan. I don't think Shaedon Sharpe should go anywhere near the top 5, in my opinion. I just don't think. Like, first off, he's more of a scorer. His athleticism, we know what happens to some hyper-athletic high school talents. He can definitely score the ball, but he has not played enough pro competition. Do you remember B.J. Boston? B.J. Boston was a stud in high school. And yes, he'll have some solid moments in the NBA, but he was bad. He was bad in Kentucky. I think he played in Kentucky. He was not had a good season, and his draft stock fell dramatically. Who knows what would have happened if Shaedon Sharpe played in college? His draft stock might go up to 1. It might have fell down to the end of the first round. He's a mystery guy, and he'll definitely, similar to Jaden Ivey, bring some scoring to the organization. I just think that it's an interesting pick. It's a risky pick, but the Kings might go for it. The Kings might want that guy that can bring some life into the organization and just help them on the offensive end. And I think that Shaedon Sharpe fits that. The final guy is A.J. Griffin from Duke. He played well in March Madness. He was a teammate to Paolo Banchero, and he was a good two-way player. He's just a really solid two-way player, and I think he's a safer pick. I feel like there's a high chance of him being a really good NBA role player, and that's just, if the Kings want to go safer and they think he has a ton of potential, A.J. Griffin is the way to go. But before we end the video, one last comment, and it is about Chet Holmgren. I told you I was going to come back to him. Everyone says that consensus top 3. That's Smith, Banchero, Holmgren, Banchero, Smith. Whatever order you think it's going to go, that is your consensus top 3. I'm going a little different. I still do believe that those are the top 3, but I think there is a world that I'm a skeptic of Holmgren, and maybe other teams are too. I'm just saying, maybe the Rockets decide to take Keegan Murray, and the Kings should jump on that button. Chet Holmgren is perfect next to Domantas Sabonis. He is absolutely perfect next to Domantas Sabonis. If the Rockets decide that, you know what, we got Christian Wood, we got Alperen Sengun, we trust those guys, we don't trust Chet Holmgren as much as we trust Alperen Sengun, which legitimately might be a possibility. He showed major potential in his first season, then Chet Holmgren. Very unlikely. But Chet Holmgren, I think out of any top 3 that randomly slips out, it is going to be Holmgren because of how unsure he is going to be at the NBA level. So yeah, that's going to be it. The Sacramento Kings have a major decision to make in the draft. It's a huge one. That 4th overall pick is huge. And if they make the right one, this team could be on the ascension, finally have some promise. And as a guy that likes the Kings, I really do like the Kings as an organization. I really just want them to see them succeed. That would be great. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to look out. I post NBA shorts like throughout the week. And yeah, make sure to look out for more of these videos. And enjoy basketball, y'all. Peace.